All right, welcome everyone to this week's meeting of the Clyde Sukeforth chapter of SABR. I am Bruce McClure, the chapter chair, and we always hold our meetings in conjunction with the Gardner-Waterman Chapter of SABR in Vermont, Dr. Clayton Truder, chair. Now, before we get started tonight, we have a special guest here this evening. Joanne Hulbert is here, and I think she just might have a poem and a little bit on this date in history for us. Am I right, Joanne?
That is correct.
Oh, get them.
All right, what I'll do is I'll get the poem out of the way. Slightly apropos and recognizable for the history today. Anyway, this is a Grantland Rice poem, so that is something that everybody has got to listen to because he wrote the best. And the title is Rubaiyat of Winter League, seasonal. I sometimes think that never blooms so red. The grand old dope is when the season's dead. And every statement that each mogul makes shows where his club next year will dash ahead. Sounds pretty familiar for right now. Here come the Dodgers rushing up the slope. The Yanks and Browns abulge with growing hope. And when the Braves are tipped to 7th place, you gotta slip it to this winter dope. Now that's from October 24, 1912. And of course, hey, the Dodgers did rush up the slope this year. So,
That's true.
With the help, of course, of Mookie Betts and a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a few. Okay. But the other thing I wanted, I had suggested to you also, is on behalf of the Century Committee, which looks into things that happened exactly 100 years ago. So 1924 comes into play. And I looked around to see if there was any baseball stories in the Boston newspapers on this date. And of course there was, because there's always baseball news on any day of the year in the Boston newspapers, including, of course, in Sunday's paper, which we get the big whole full page story of nothing but baseball. And it is done in the style of how they used to do it in the Globe over 100 years ago. And it's still written in the same format. So it's the one thing that I pull out of the paper on Sundays and set it aside and look at it the whole thing. But this is what we're going to do on what exactly was in the Boston papers on November 18th, 1924. All right. The title headline, there's a nice looking guy in the picture. I'll show it later. Former Boston University athlete sold to Connie Mack. All right, and the big headline is Connie Mack buys Kid Cochrane, gives $50,000 and 5 players for the former BU star. All right, so Connie Mack, manager of the Philadelphia American League Baseball Club, tonight announced the completion of a deal by which Gordon S. Cochrane, star catcher of the Portland Club, that's Portland, Oregon, by the way, on the Pacific Coast League, comes to the Athletics in exchange for 5 players and a cash consideration. Oh boy. Mr. Mack declined to state the amount of cash involved, but reports from other sources said it was $50,000. Pretty good for 24. All right. Denny Burns, Bob Hasty, and Harry Raconda, and Ollie Shirley, an outfielder, and Charles Rowland, catcher, are the players who will go to Portland in the deal. All right. Several major league magnates were said to have made flattering offers for the Pacific Coast star, whose home, by the way, is Bridgewater, Massachusetts. A local boy makes good on the West Coast. Cochrane, who graduated from Boston University, gained fame as a catcher still while in college. During the past season, he played in 59 games for Portland, pounding out the ball for a batting average of .388. He is 21 years old. Who is this guy? Everybody's got to know who it is. And this is his debut announcement in the newspaper about his upcoming career, which began in 1925 in the spring thereof. Who is it?
Just shout it out if somebody knows. I'm going to stay out of it.
Anybody know?
Dixie, go. You unmute yourself, though.
Mickey Cochran.
You got it. You got it. It's Mickey
know.
Cochran. Yes, exactly. Played for the Philadelphia Athletics from 1925 to 1933 and Detroit 1934, 1937. inducted into the Hall of Fame in the class of 1947. But there was his debut, young star, up and coming, rising star. My gosh, how did he get all the way from Boston University all the way out to the Pacific League? But he did. But he came back east, and that's where he gained all that fame and fortune.
Football was his best sport at BU.
Go figure.
Right?
Well, yeah, I know. They were, BU was much bigger with football than they were with baseball all along. Yeah. Harry Aganis. Yeah, same sort of deal, So that is your little 100 years ago today announcement of the young 21-year-old from Bridgewater, Massachusetts, alumni of Boston University, on his way to a life of fame and probably not much fortune, but some fame. Take it away.
If there's one thing I love, it's when the Boston folks come in to our chapter meetings and hang out with us, because it's always a good time and there's always great stuff that is shared.
We're just a very, very short ride away. After all, I'm going up to New Hampshire in the morning. It's only 40 miles from where I am.
That's true. Hey, you know what? You're having a special meeting Wednesday night. Why don't you tell us about that before I
yes.
move on? Go.
Yes, that is going to be what it's called the Zoom social, and it's inviting everybody in to give your 2 cents or 3 about baseball. And it is a what would you say? It's not going to be a push around sort of a thing. It's, in other words, we're going to all talk about baseball, what it means socially to everybody. And especially now that we are into the Winter League and Hot Stove League, let's sit down and talk about baseball, about what happened this year and what might happen next year. And it might be kind of fun. We did it a couple of years ago, a similar one. We didn't call it a Zoom social. It was the Boston chapter pity party. And it worked out very, very well. So we're going to try a new one. All of the explanation is on the messages that we had sent out. I unfortunately will not be able to attend it because I have a commission meeting here in town.
What?
It's one that I cannot I can't miss because I am on the agenda. So unfortunately,
What in the world?
I know. At first he said it's going to be on Thursday, and they said, no, wait, no, the 20th. It's on a Wednesday. He said, thanks a lot.
Yeah, you know what? That's just wrong.
So, but unfortunately, duty calls, and I have to make an appearance at the commission meeting.
All right. Well, speaking of duty calling, it is my duty to introduce this next guy, Jeff Cohen, who's going to tell us a little bit about his podcast, Baseball and Barbecue. Jeff, what's going on this week, man?
Thanks, Bruce. Yes, we have a great pitcher on the podcast. He pitched in the 80s. He won the Rolaids Relief Man Award. If guy knows, if you remember Jim Kern, this guy is hilarious.
Yep.
So our episode was dropped this past Saturday, so please check it out. And I'd like to say a hello to one of our former guests who was actually appeared on our show about a year ago. I'm going to paste it right into the chat, and it's Bob Lemoyne, who gave us a great talk about his book on Babe Ruth going back to Boston. So thank you, Bob. Thanks, Bruce.
Of course. All right, on to our feature presentation. By the time Franklin Delano Roosevelt took the oath of office as the new president of the United States in 1932, the country continued to reel from the throes of the Great Depression. Hoping to combat the helplessness Americans felt, the FDR administration launched a series of programs that served to get the nation back on its feet. The Works Progress Administration was the largest New Deal agency, employing millions of people from all walks of life, where citizens were hired to paint murals, write stories, build bridges and roads, construct tunnels, and build ballparks in rural and suburban communities. From approximately 1934 to 1940, over 80 ballparks were built by WPA workers in communities from Cooperstown, New York, and Wichita, Kansas, to Wilson, North Carolina, and Eugene, Oregon, where they built Civic Stadium, Ferris Field, Holman Stadium, and Ackley Park. This presentation will look at 4 of the 66 ballparks, as many biographies providing an historical and social context on the construction of these ballparks and what they meant to their communities, where a handful of the structures remain today, the 90th anniversary of their first construction. Anthony Salazar is the chair of SABR's Latino Baseball Committee and has written and presented on various topics in Latino baseball history, including research for documentary companies looking to promote Latino baseball. He has been an active leader in the Pacific Northwest chapter and is a former SABR board member, and he is here tonight to share his presentation. Anthony Salazar, welcome to Northern New England. How are you?
Hey, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, Bruce. Thank you very much for having me.
It is all yours, my friend. Go get them.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. I'm Anthony Salazar from the Pacific Northwest chapter, and I'm delighted to be here in the Clyde Sukeforth chapter. I wanted to present something to you that I've been thinking about for a long time. And the genesis is this. We live not too far. My wife and I live not too far from one of those ballparks, Olympic Stadium in Hoquiam, Washington. And we drove by it once, and I just thought, this is a pretty good story. And I just wanted to research it and see what I find. And so I ended up finding just lots of stuff about, the ballpark and other ballparks like it. And so I had it on my shelf for a while, and it's been sitting there for about 10 years before I just decided to bring it back off and started massaging a little bit and doing just a little bit more in-depth analysis. And so just super excited to be able to put this together for SABR 52. And, just really cool just to be able to do this research. So let me see if I can find my presentation. Bruce, can you bring it back up?
So you're going to hit the green share button down on the bottom.
Okay, there you go.
And then you'll click your presentation and hit share.
All right.
Look at you
Okay.
go.
Here we go. Let's see. Let me just get rid of you folks here. Where's the... All right. Whoops. Hold on a second. I'm just trying to... Oh, well, I'll just go through this. So here's my presentation. Building a WPA Ballpark, baseball in the New Deal, 1934 to 1943. In the grand scheme of things, it's not really that long a period, only about 9 years. But, that's long enough for this economic program that lasted, give or take a few months. So our story begins with the infamous stock market crash on Tuesday, October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday, when the stock market loses over 500 points on a single day's trading. Obviously, the greatest economic calamity of the era, as billions of dollars were lost. And as you know, people lose everything, their bank savings, their homes, their families, and unfortunately, their lives. These drastic economic conditions created what was called the Great Depression. No jobs, no money, no food, and millions of Americans, there's no hope. Lives are uprooted and turned upside down in all domains and sectors in the United States. The election of 1982, the election of 1932 brought some new hope for an uptick in possible economic opportunities. The new president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, promised that Americans will see change for the better, saying in his inaugural address, "Our greatest primary task is to put people to work." Great. So what does that mean? It means that one of the first persons he puts to work was Harry Hooper, who was a talented administrator and a former social worker. So, he knows how to get things done and knows who his job will benefit: the great people of the United States, who are tired of living like refugees in their own country. Under the auspices of the New Deal, the overarching economic recovery plan, the Works Progress Administration, or WPA, was created in conjunction with states and counties throughout the nation. The WPA was responsible for the construction of many public buildings, roads, recreational areas, and other infrastructures such as utilities, sewers, dams, as well as operating large arts, drama, and literacy programs. The primary program's goal was to give work to the legions of unemployed blue-collar workers who lost their jobs. In fact, 90% of the WPA workforce was made up of the blue-collar population. By this time, it was discontinued. By the time it was discontinued by Congress in 1943, the WPA had built 650,000 miles of roads, 78,000 bridges, 125,000 buildings, and 800 miles of airport runways. For the sake of this discussion, I'm not addressing the thousands of artists and writers who were also employed by the WPA to create many beautiful works that still adorn the walls and libraries and halls of our nation. Now, getting back to the more construction related aspects, the WPA helped to fund the creation of 44 ballparks. And my apologies for writing 66, a little dyslexic there. There's quite a list of ballparks that were built during this period, such as my hometown ballpark 6 Stadium, built in 1938 for the Seattle Rainiers. But ballparks such as these did not use WPA funding, so that's a distinction. In total, we're talking about 44 ballparks. Check out this map, and you'll see all the little red dots indicated where these ballparks were built. These ballparks range from Warren Ballpark in Brisbane, Arizona, built in 1936, to Grayson Stadium in Savannah, Georgia, built in 1941, and Red Rock Stadium in Elk City, Oklahoma, built in 1939, as well as Holman Stadium in Nashua, New Hampshire, built in 1937. What I'm going to do is talk a little more specifically about 4 individual ballparks and try to give you a little bit to chew on as you reflect on the character of these places and how they were built and what made them unique. Bear in mind that each story is going to be just a little different from each other. The 4 are Carson Park in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Civic Stadium in Eugene, Oregon, Clemens Field in Hannibal, Missouri, and Olympic Stadium in Hoquiam, Washington, not too far from Seattle. So, batting first is Carson Park. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Moving on. Carson Park. Carson Park has long associated with baseball in Eau Claire, which was established as a city park in 1915. 1 year after an heir of William Carson, a wealthy lumberman, donated the site. In the early 1930s, the success of the Eau Claire Bears, a farm team of the Chicago Cubs, encouraged Eau Claire to apply to the WPA to fund recreational improvements in Carson Park. The centerpiece of these projects were simple but an elegant sandstone walled stadium. Let's see if I see that there. Sorry. Don't look. Sandstone walled stadium built to seat over 1,500 fans. The stone was quarried from a site in nearby Downsville, Wisconsin, where unemployed laborers were hired to work on the stadium throughout 1936 and ready the ballpark for action by 1937. The first season of the minor league baseball at Carson Park was a resounding success. The Bears played like the southwest northeast orientation that mostly shaded them from the afternoon sun. Both the fans and players enjoyed the surroundings of the wooded ballpark that's situated by Half Moon Lake. From 1937 to 1962, the Eau Claire Bears called Carson Park home, winning the Northern League pennant 3 times. In the early 1990s, recognition of the ballpark legend Hank Aaron's connection to Eau Claire baseball's heritage renewed interest in Carson Park. Aaron played his first season of professional baseball in Eau Claire for the Bears in 1952, where his talent was evident to local fans. Building on that awareness, in 1995, the city of Eau Claire proposed a $560,000 renovation project for the stadium. Completed in 1998, the project included new and improved seating in the grandstand, a completely remodeled area under the grandstand, and new handicapped accessible approaches. The renovation project makes baseball at Carson Park a more enjoyable experience for fans and players while retaining the character and distinctiveness of the stadium. Batting second is Civic Stadium, located in Eugene, Oregon. It's the only known example of a Depression-era ballpark left in the state of Oregon. Civic Stadium was built in 1938 on the east side of Willamette Street in Eugene, between 20th and 22nd Avenue. And I'll just pause my presentation here to say that as a grad student at the University of Oregon, it was great to just walk down the street and go catch games here and there. So it's just super, really neat ballpark just to sit in and just imagine, what life was like, 60 some odd years ago. Built as a cooperative between the Eugene Chamber of Commerce, the Eugene Public School District Number 4, and the WPA. The 4J Public School District had been the sole proprietor of Civic Stadium since the construction in 1938. The land where Civic Stadium is located, known as the Amazon Tract, was deeded to the school district in 1938 with the understanding that the property was to be used for a recreation area for the school district and for the municipality. Area businesses provided many of the necessary materials, and a regional campaign spearheaded by the Eugene City District and the local community raised additional money for the stadium, enabling the project to break ground in 1938. The labor for the construction of the stadium was donated by the WPA. By 1937, there was a growing need for an athletic field in Eugene, both for the community and schools. So on December 3rd, 1937, the Eugene Register Guard printed the first article referencing the Big Amazon Park project. By December 8, 1937, a committee had been formed by the Eugene Chamber of Commerce, and plans were being formulated for a new athletic field to be built through the cooperation of the Chamber of Commerce, the Eugene Public School Board, and the City of Eugene City Council. By December 24, 1937, the WPA was reported to be interested in the development and building of a recreational center. On January 11, 1938, the Register Guard presented the facts regarding the financial plans for a new athletic field. The City Council was asked to turn over the Amazon Tract, which was held for $6,000 in back taxes. The school board was asked to contribute $6,000, and the committee guaranteed to raise another $6,000 so the first year work could be completed. The WPA was set to contribute the labor. The $12,000 contributed by the school board and the committee would be enough to grade the field and build the covered grandstand, which would seat 4,000 people. On January 26, 1938, the Register Guard reported that the park project is threatened by deadlock. Concern of who would pay the $6,000 in back tax assessments, the city or the school board, seemed to spell the end of the project. Without the deed from the city, the school board was concerned that they would not be able to secure the WPA for the project. The controversy lasted for months until it was decided to put the vote to the community. So on Friday, March 20, 1938, Eugene citizens went to the polls to vote on the issue to levy a tax to repay the debt of $6,000 in outstanding liens to the property. Voters approved the project by almost 2-to-1 margin, enabling the proposed athletic field to move forward. The title to the Amazon Tract, was deeded over to Eugene Public School District on June 13, 1938, to be, quote, used as a recreational activity for the school district and for the municipality, end quote. Eugene Civic Stadium would never have been constructed without the display of outstanding public support it received and the cooperation of numerous civic agencies involved. This unique cohesion of community development and city planning illustrates the camaraderie apparent in WPA projects built throughout the country during the Great Depression era. Essentially, the stadium helped bring both the government and community together during these difficult times. While the Civic Stadium was used primarily as a facility for high school sports and community events, the ballpark welcomed the Eugene Emeralds in 1969, which has been playing ball at nearby Bethel Park since 1955. Having been upgraded to AAA Pacific Coast League, an affiliate of the Philadelphia Phillies, the Emeralds required a larger facility and sought the assistance of the Eugene School District when plans to build a new stadium were unsuccessful. Baseball had not been played at Civic Stadium in over 20 years, but the team was granted a 3-year lease to use and improve the stadium. In August 2009, the Emeralds announced the relocation to the University of Oregon's PK Park for the 2010 season. The Eugene Emeralds cited Civic Stadium's need for substantial renovations, major problems with irrigations and electrical systems, as well as broken seats and an estimated modernization that would cost as much as $15 million. From 2009 to 2015, there were many civic and community attempts to save Civic Stadium, but in June 2015, the ballpark was destroyed by a fire when a group of 4 preteen boys were playing with the matches and burned the place to the ground. Batting third is Clements Field. Hannibal's Clements Fields had been home to numerous minor league baseball teams and was constructed during the 1930s. Clements Field, the name is referenced to Hannibal's most celebrated resident, Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. Demonstrated change over time, the ballpark later served as a German prisoner of war camp and then returned to hosting baseball teams after World War II. The ballpark replaced the original structure, which was built during the 1920s but destroyed in a fire. That original stadium hosted a night game 5 years before Major League Baseball played a game under the lights when the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro Leagues beat the Hannibal team 16-1 in 1930 under the innovative traveling light systems that were brought on trucks. The Monarch players were far better than those from the local 9, but those professionals usually kept games close when playing on the road, as these road games were essential to their financial viability, and the players earned extra money while barnstorming. As a result, this box score might provide an indication that the players did not desire to return to Hannibal, owing to some aspect as to their welcome there. A fire destroyed the original Clements Field facility on August 14, 1936. As part of the WPA project, workers built the current Clements Field from 1936 to 1938, which included constructing a grandstand behind home plate and a limestone wall around the perimeter. Workers quarried the local limestone and used it for the wall. In the fall of 1944, the wall proved extra valuable when the stadium, as I mentioned before, acted as a German world prisoner of war camp, housing nearly 200 prisoners of war who lived in tents surrounded by barbed wire. The POWs sorted military shoes collected by the army in Europe and sent them to Hannibal, where prisoners repaired the shoes and returned them to Europe. Their soldiers there then distributed them to refugees. However, the field's primary function for the most of its existence involved hosting professional minor league baseball teams, which include the Hannibal Pilots, 1947 to 1948, the Hannibal Stags in 1952, the Hannibal Cardinals from 1953 to 1954, as well as the Hannibal Citizens, who played in 1955. Hannibal teams briefly served as an MLB affiliate, first as a farm team to the St. Louis Browns in 1947, and then the St. Louis Cardinals from 1953 to 1954. Minor League Baseball left Hannibal in 1955, leaving Clements Field to be used for various baseball and community functions. In 2008, Clements Field received a $3.3 million renovation that preserved the grandstand and brick wall perimeter, adding 2,500 seats and modern amenities. The collegiate team in Hannibal, called the Cavemen, played at the stadium from 2008 to 2016. Also in 2016, the stadium The town added a new gate to the ballpark entrance called the Jake Beckley 308 gate. The gate pays homage to the Hall of Fame baseball player from Hannibal, born 1867, who played in the MLB from 1888 to 1907, hitting 308 for his career. The Hannibal Hoots, they played at Clemens Field in 2008, but flooding the next year damaged the field, forcing the Hoots to relocate to Quincy, Illinois. Since then, the stadium has primarily hosted amateur baseball organizations. You see a shot of the grandstand there. And batting cleanup is Olympic Stadium. The city of Hoquiam originally bought the property in 1929 for a public playfield, adding to its size in 1938 and 1953. Construction of this facility started on May 23rd, 1938, and was officially completed in March 1939. The physical structure of Olympic Stadium is an old growth fir heavy timber frame with cedar shingle sidings, built in a truncate U shape at an angled corner to open the portion of the grandstand that faces east. This orientation was used so that the fans and the players would be somewhat sheltered from the wind and rain coming off the Pacific coast, which just lies 18 miles to the west. The grandstand was a modified hipped roof with composition asphalt shingles. The eaves of the large timber trusses are boxed in. A large shallow hip roof entrance portico shelters visitors on the southwest corners of the structure where the ticket booths and the main doors are located. The timber frame rested on concrete footings. The proposal listed everything needed down to the last nuts and bolts and the price of each item. The idea was to complete a citywide playfield improvement project, which included constructing and installing playground equipment and a broadcasting booth, tennis courts, fences, bowling greens, bleachers, scoreboards, backstops, waiting pools, archery ranges, storeroom buildings, kitchens, tables, benches, cleaning and excavating, installing sprinklers and lighting systems, and other incidental work. The total project cost was estimated at over $69,000. Over $41,000 was to be furnished by the WPA, and another $28,000 had been pledged by the city and local businesses in materials and truck equipment. The community was very excited about the allotment and the $2,300 that was raised at a local meeting at the local Hotel Emerson on May 11, 1938. On May 23, 1938, the stadium project began with work on the site. By June, the WPA had 160 carpenters, 25 helpers, and 200 laborers and 5 foremen on site. The turf for the stadium was brought in from a local golf course. 500,000 board feet of lumber, which was donated by a local shingle mill, which was used in the construction of the stadium. The old growth fir was reportedly logged in Clallam County and was brought into Hoquiam for milling before being transported to the site. As construction on the stadium progressed, it was soon realized that the WPA project bid was underestimated. So on October 6, 1938, the WPA approved an additional $51,000 for the project, bringing the total cost to this point at over $123,000. The project's finish date had been set for Thanksgiving so that the Hoquiam and Aberdeen annual high school game could be held at the new stadium. When it was realized this date would not be met with present construction crews, a night crew of WPA workers was put on the job site. They worked under floodlights to ensure that the project would be finished in time for the big game. The stadium opened to the public on November 24, 1938, the day of the big game. Over the years, Olympic Stadium hosted mostly high school football and American Legion baseball. By the mid-1970s, there started a host of independent baseball teams that played there. Those included the Ports, the Loggers, the Mets, the Gulls, and finally in 1999, the Reign. And most recently, College Wood Bat Summer League Baseball. Olympic Stadium has been cited as the best preserved and largest standing wooden grandstand in the country, which still retains its original location, design, setting materials, workmanship, and feeling associated with this community. In looking at the impacts, let's see, what is this? In looking at the impacts of the WPA during the 8-year existence, the WPA put some 8.5 million people to work. Over 11 million were unemployed in 1934 at the cost of, as the government estimated, $11 billion, the equivalent of $236 billion today. In looking at the impacts of the WPA on baseball during this era, I would argue that aside from providing much needed jobs to thousands of workers in these 44 towns, wonderful shrines were created that paid homage to their local communities by coming together to craft a plan to sort out finances, sometimes at odds with others, but coming together nonetheless and bringing in nearby materials, whether it be old growth lumber, limestone dug from nearby quarries, and steel brought in from elsewhere. These ballparks are a monument to the eras that provided hope at a time when hope might have been a pipe dream. It is a testament to these workers and the vision of the success by the architects of the New Deal and the WPA that a good number of these ballparks still stand. And where does my research go from here? Well, I'm very happy to announce, let me just get past this, I'll come back to that. I'm very happy to announce that I applied for a SABR editorial board grant to turn this project into a multimedia web-based database. The objective here is to create a multimedia web-based database that captures all sorts of information about the ballparks, each one of the ballparks, whether it be text, photo, video, media archival, what have you. So I'm gathering a team of researchers, mostly at this point comprised of those from the Landmarks Committee and from the Ballparks Committee, and a host of others who live not too far from the ballparks. So the grant was approved, so I'm super psyched. So I've got 1 year to put this all together. So this will be a living, breathing, dynamic research project. My goal was to not turn this into a book, which would be kind of static. And I just want that opportunity to create a space so that future researchers and future historians can build upon this progress. So I'm super psyched. Again, as you see here, the rollout is expected autumn 2025 or spring 26, but I'm going to definitely be shooting for that autumn 25 date. Now, going back up to my sources, you see here the Living New Deal, National Archives, as well as the National Register of Historic Places, as well as Northwest Baseball History, and the Archaeology Channel. From further resources here. So that is my presentation. So thank you very much. Any questions?
You know, one of the things that I want to just get out there, Holman Stadium in beautiful downtown Nashua, New Hampshire.
Yes, sir.
If you're working on this website and you need a little help from our chapter, let us know and let me see as if I can get some folks to get involved to give you a hand, Anthony.
Has anyone been to that ballpark and can you describe what it's like?
It is a little tiny thing, seats about 2,800 people. The Nashua team's offices are actually a trailer off to the side. It's a college wood bat league that plays there in the Futures League, same league as Brockton and New Britain. Excuse me, Donnie Newcomb played there. Roy Campanella played there.
Oh, cool.
Sukeforth was also there at one time.
Is there any monuments or anything like that devoted to them?
There are, you mean, yes, there are,
Thank you.
there are some plaques on the side of the ballpark. If you don't have pictures of those, I can get out there and grab some nice photos for you if you want.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right. So if you have a question for our presenter, Anthony Salazar, tonight, please go down to the bottom of the screen and hit the react button. Once you hit react, you'll see another button that says raise hand. Click that button, raise your hand, and get in line to ask your question of our presenter, Anthony Salazar, tonight. First one up is Molly. Molly, go get him.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you for presenting to us tonight.
Hi.
I was just curious because I'm originally from Connecticut, what the Connecticut stadium was that was built.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's see. I've got my handy dandy list, and let me look at that. Connecticut. Here it is. Muzzy Field in Bristol, Connecticut.
Know it well.
It's seen of brick, concrete, and steel.
Bruce, is that where the Rockcats played?
So Muzzy Field was, she's right. It's where the New Britain Rockcats used to play as the Bristol Red Sox.
Okay.
When Joe Buses bought the Bristol Red Sox, he moved them across town to New Britain to what was at the time a new ballpark that was actually a little bit smaller than Muzzy Field, Beehive Stadium. But the Bristol Red Sox were there for a long time. She's right. Yep.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Joe Ross. Oh boy.
Oh,
Buckle
all
up,
good.
Anthony. It's
Nice.
Joe.
All good.
All right. How you
Congratulations.
doing, man?
Anthony,
Doing all
nice,
right?
nice presentation. Very lovely. I appreciate it. It was good.
Thank you, sir.
Just to fill in some things for you, on the right field side, they built a wooden stands and a little press box that was used primarily for football. That has since been replaced, I believe,
Which
with a more
ballpark are you talking
permanent
about?
structure.
He's talking about
In
Holman
the
Stadium. He worked there.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hold
And
on.
then in the outfield, they did
Mhm.
some finish work to put a little patio just outside the fence in left field.
Nice.
There is also a couple of plaques there. There's retired numbers on the wall from Newcomb and Robinson,
Sweet.
who started their career. They were the first black ball players in organized ball that played there.
Gotcha.
And that's where they got their start. There were some other areas. They used to have a green area of grass next to a makeshift concession stand where people would sit because the 4th of July is a big date. In fact, it's against the law to charge admission to any game that's played on the 4th of July because it's also used for fireworks and a parade and all the usual hoopla that goes on the 4th of July.
Right. Nice.
So Eric Poulin's beloved Holyoke Millers actually moved to Nashua after their time in Holyoke. They didn't stay long in Nashua, but they were there at Holman for a couple of years. I can't when Eric, turn on your mic. When did they move? I forget.
So the Millers were in Holyoke from 1977 to 1982.
It was
They
82.
had no business. Holyoke had no business hosting a AA franchise in the facilities they had. So none.
Yeah, but we had a great time.
Oh God, we won the Eastern League in 1980.
Yeah.
It was great.
Hey, let's go to Jeff Cohen. Jeff, how you doing, brother?
Okay, good.
You're
Thanks,
up.
guys. Terrific presentation, Anthony. I wanted to ask
Thank
you
you.
about the one stadium you put on the Olympic Stadium.
Yes,
I
sir.
believe it was still a wood structure.
Yes, sir.
Any plans to upgrade that to make it like fireproof or something?
You would think so, huh? But I've not read anything. Let's see. The last bit of research I did about that was about 6 months ago or so. But I have not seen anything that indicated that they would upgrade those requirements. But you never know. Kind of depends on who's in that particular city council. So stand by.
All right, thanks.
Robert Boshar in the chat has a very good question. His question is, why not write a book? What's your feeling on that, Anthony?
Because I mean, I had wanted to, and my thought was that a book is so static, and I just wanted that opportunity for people to come along and add to it. You know, I want this to become a living document, as it were. You know, very robust, very dynamic. If someone comes along and finds some new video image or some archival thing or something that adds to the knowledge of that ballpark, even recollections would be awesome to add as well. I should write that down. That's a good idea. And you know, things like that that would really add to the knowledge of, you know, these individual ballparks. And what's funny, and I don't know if any of you have ever done any WPA history research, and what I've found in the past couple of years is that this information is so decentralized. So Washington State has its own records, Nevada has its own records, and so each state has their own records. But it was really hard to find something that was so centralized, like a big book of this is the WPA history, and this is what we found. And I swear to God, about 10 years ago, I did find a book that said something like these were all the expenses. This was the budget, but I'll be darned if I can remember where the heck that book was, somewhere in the library, and I just haven't been able to find it. But that's why I didn't want to, you know, just devote this to a book, because I want people to keep contributing to this.
An ongoing project, a living document. I love it. Kirk Weber, how you doing, Kirk?
Doing excellent, thanks. Great presentation. I very much enjoyed it. Quincy University Stadium was a WPA project in Quincy, Illinois. It's kind of unique because it has two separate grandstands, one for the baseball side of the field and an entirely separate grandstand for the football and lacrosse.
Okay, there it is.
It's
Illinois.
also, yes.
Quincy, Illinois. Okay, built 1938. Stone, no roof.
Yeah, it has stone very similar looking to what they have in Hannibal. So I'm assuming it must have been quarried in the same location, or if that's even known.
Could be. I'm not sure what the distance is, but you know, most likely you just never know. Like I kind of inferred is that, you know, what people did, the contractors did, was just look for some suitable local resources, whether
Right.
like I said, whether it's sandstone or Douglas fir or what have you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Anthony, the questions are just going to keep on coming because who's up next? Karen Holleran is up. Karen, unmute. How you doing?
Hey,
Karen, what you got? Hi.
this is great.
Thank you.
And I was thinking, instead of a book, could you have references for students to go in and look at the different places
Sure. Let me write that down. Good idea. Love it.
and make
Okay.
it so they could look at each of the places and have different kinds of history?
Sure, absolutely. What's interesting about this is not just, you know, not just the history aspect, but I really enjoyed writing about some of the technical aspects, you know, where the money was coming and so forth, because it really does give you an idea about how a project really does work. You've got so many local entities, whether it's the school district, local government, and what have you, all having to work together, even though they don't always agree on something. But good idea. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Next up is Jim Lurie. Jim, you can unmute.
Howdy,
How are
Jim.
you this evening, Jim? We're going to wait. There you go.
Doing great. Great presentation. I enjoyed
Thank
it
you, sir.
very much. And you just touched on a couple of things that I was curious about. But your map showed a lot of these stadiums in clusters throughout the country.
Right, right.
And in your research, did you come across any reference to national politics affecting these different venues? The fact that they're so close together in some areas would indicate that there's maybe a little more going on than.
Right. That's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that, but what I did find out is that, you basically had to apply for these funds. And so it was a city entity, some government body that represented the city had to reach out to the WPA office and say, hey, we'd like to apply for these. And, would you help us out? So it could be that a number, once someone was successful and they had kind of like a template, if you will, that they would pass it on to someone else to say, hey, there's a template we used. So I would like to think that there was a little bit of word of mouth going on, like, hey, we did this, we were successful in our bid. You guys try it and see what happens with you. So I'd like to think of it as more of a cooperative thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
One of the things that just crossed my mind, Anthony, is you may want to get a hold of my guy, Bob Busser, who is the stadium and arena photographer extraordinaire.
Oh.
He's probably got some material that he might be able to donate or loan to your project. It might be something to do.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll check
That's a
them
good
out.
idea. Bob, if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, get a hold of me, would you please? Dixie, Dixie Tarango, you are up. How you doing, Dix?
I'm doing fine.
There
Anthony,
you
great
go.
presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank
Two
you.
unrelated questions. First one is, it's been 8 years since the fire in Eugene, Oregon. Has anything happened to the site?
No, as a matter of fact, the school district, I think it's just sitting there rather vacant. I have not seen any pictures, although I'm going down to Eugene soon. As you see, I'm an Oregon Duck. Go Ducks. To go visit it, that site and talk to some people over there, as well as the folks at PK Park. Kind of on a somewhat related note. You guys might know that a lot of the minor league ballparks are having to conform to MLB standards, and PK Park has to conform a little bit, not as much as a lot of those ballparks, but they still have a little bit of work they're going to do. So it's, again, PK Park, they're sharing with the Ducks and the Emeralds. So it sounds like that relationship is going fairly well. But like I said, I need to go and see that Amazon track for myself and take some pictures.
Okay, second question.
Sure.
For all the people on the screen here, we've probably all heard about the WPA 40, 50, 60 years ago. While you were doing on your research, did you find out anything about the WPA that you didn't know or found fascinating?
I'm sorry, Dixie, was that to me or to the group?
No, to you.
Absolutely.
In your work, did you find anything about the WPA that you didn't know before?
Well, I've got degrees in American social and urban history from UC Santa Barbara and University of Oregon. So I study this quite a bit, and I'm just still amazed at how much like I just read some of those crazy stats about how many, hundreds of thousands of miles of roads were built. And I think about the artwork, that was created at this time, and the music that was created, all the stories that were created. I just think that's just a phenomenal thing. I get, getting a little chills just thinking about it, because, how much this program really bolstered the dynamic aspect of American culture. And I think that's not really talked about enough, and I'm looking at Joanne here on the screen, and I'm sure she would feel the same way. How many poets, Joanne, were bolstered by WPA?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, thinking about this recently, speaking of WPA projects, I just finished up, I don't know how much more I'm going to find, but a local man, a writer, who he wrote 5 novels, ended in 31. Depression comes on, nobody's buying novels, and he put in for a WPA project, and he did a deep dive into local research, deeds and grants, and I mean, I was cursing him halfway through it, because hundreds of these deeds, he'd go into Cambridge and Boston and everything and research all this stuff, put them into notebooks, and the stuff is languishing in files up until now. And I said, be able to share these things, get them off the paper, get them onto a USB drive, if anything, and so we can disseminate them. And, it's really important to look back into the backlogs of these things and get them
Yeah.
out there.
Right.
Oh, and then the other one, I was just taking down notes. There's a small ball field in Douglas, Mass. And I am wondering if it might have been connected with WPA. I haven't been down there in a few years, but I remember there was this big plaque up there. I'm going to go back there and
Sure.
check it out and see whether or not. I don't think that there was a big major or minor league. Well, I don't know. Connie Mack might have used it in the Blackstone Valley League. And so that might qualify for it. And it would have been at that time. This will be a good one to add. It was used for exhibition games. Ted Williams had been out there.
Nice.
Although there was a thunderstorm and the game was canceled, but he stopped off at the restaurant bar and everything instead. But but I'm wondering if this thing in Douglas might be it. And if so, I am going to let you know.
Awesome. Hey, Dixie, going back to your question as well, I recently inherited a painting that was created by someone, by a WPA artist.
Yeah.
And so I was super psyched about that. And I think about that and, how much, these folks, again, the artists, the writers and so forth, they contributed to their local communities. So I'm just very pleased and certainly privileged enough, absolutely, a little underline there, to have studied this in college.
Well, I used up all your tax money because I worked for the National Park Service for 30 years.
Awesome.
And the WPA probably did a couple $1 billion worth of work for them.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. Beautiful ski lodges over in my neck of the woods.
Alex stays in the chat. It would be cool to build some 3D replicas online of some of the ones that are still open and being used. That's kind of a neat little idea. Maybe you can hook up with the AI committee on that one, Anthony.
Yeah, you never know. Hey, it's there's whatever the technology is now, we can create some kind of thing like that. Thank you, Alec. Good.
Tom Emerson, shout out to my hometown stadium, Roosevelt Stadium, Jersey City, a WPA project. The professional debut of Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, that was thanks, Bruce. Roosevelt Stadium is anybody who grew up in Jersey City, it's just unforgettable. And he played for the Montreal Royals in '46 when they played the New York Giants farm team AAA, which played in Roosevelt Stadium. But yeah, it was Frank Hague, of course, the mayor of Jersey City, delivered the votes for Roosevelt every year. So he got a lot of money for one of the best hospitals in the country, for Roosevelt Stadium. And it was high school football played there. So great presentation, Anthony, thanks. And if you need any kind of help with the Roosevelt Stadium part in your next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Just shoot me an email.
Okay.
And just like I said, I'm starting to gather the list of researchers. So what I'm doing is having folks, if you're interested in a particular stadium, let me know and I'll assign that to you and so forth. And I'm just going from there. So I just created a 1-year timeline. So my next step is to talk with Jacob at SABR and go from there. So thank you very much.
I still have some people I know in JC. So yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Tom.
I believe you're talking about Jacob Pomranke, our director of editorial content. He's actually on the call tonight, Anthony.
Oh, great. Thanks. Hey, Jacob.
The questions keep coming. The comments keep coming. Robert Bochar, have you read the Paul Goldberger Ballpark book? Did you use it for your presentation? He says it's a great presentation. Tom Watson talks about Frazier Field in Lynn, Mass, which was also built by the WPA.
Sweet. I've got my little Excel spreadsheet here. So as you guys are talking, I'm kind of going back. Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, this specific conversation is one of the best things about SABR, the collegiality and the willingness to work together. And that idea that you can bring a group of people together under the umbrella of one subject, baseball, and as the conversation flows, they find they have so many things in common and things that they can do for one another to further the research and knowledge of our great game. Greg Fagley, you are up. You can unmute and go get him, my friend. How you doing, Greg?
Doing great. Hey,
Howdy, Greg.
hi. I really enjoyed your program. It was awesome.
Thank you, sir.
The question, my question actually was already asked. Jim asked my question, so I guess I just wanted to make an observation, and that was the fact that all of this work got done during FDR's presidency is really amazing. I mean, it's such a short window of time for the idea to be created, and then for the work to get done, for sites to be selected. It's just amazing. So my question was going to be, what was considered when for selecting the sites that were chosen for new ballparks? That was going to be my question, but Jim has already asked that question.
Well, okay, I can answer that with kind of an interesting anecdote. So let's go back to the Hoquiam Stadium, the Olympic Stadium in Hoquiam. Now, in my research, they wanted to build a ballpark, and the problem was that the Aberdeen community, Hoquiam and Aberdeen, are right next to each other. So you might have inferred that they were rivals playing that Thanksgiving game in 1938. So Aberdeen wanted it, Hoquiam wanted it, and I believe it was something like almost like a coin toss. I'm trying to remember how it actually wound up in Hoquiam. So they were, sometimes it just came down to the rivals, if there was a coin toss or who had a little bit more pull than someone else. And I'm trying to remember, and I'm thinking that it was also, they were trying to build it maybe in between that line between Hoquiam and Aberdeen. So as close to one of the communities or the other. So sometimes it's just happenstance. And sometimes again, in other cases, it was building upon, site that was there before. Like there had been a fire, a couple of these places in earlier, and they just wanted the funds to kind of rebuild it and make it a little bit more grander. But yeah.
What about the criteria that was used in making in choosing sites? Can you provide any information on what about that?
Yeah, I think it'd be something typical that you'd see today. Is it how accessible is it? Are there roads? Doing their own environmental impact report. That is, trying to figure out what's the best location, what's not going to flood. Again, where are the most available resources nearby? So I think a lot of those considerations were factored in when considering a site.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Look who's back. It's Joe Ross.
I'm back. One of the things I'm going to inject in Lynn Fraser Field, that's the only real ball field that I used to play on. Back in high school days, I used to play sandlot ball there, and actually played with a player who became a major leaguer.
Oh.
A guy by the name of Mike Hegan, nephew of Jim, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Also, I used to go there in softball. They had the King in his court, if you remember them. He was a 4-man crew that played barnstorming all over the country. He was so good at softball, he would strike you out blindfolded and pitch to you from second base. But that's another whole story. More about Holman Stadium, however. Okay, they put up a new scoreboard, so they've made improvements over the years.
Mm-hmm.
They also were home to the team I worked for, which was the Nashua Pride. I can't tell you all the affiliated names of the clubs they played for, because, of course, every time they got a new parent club, the name changed. So it was all over the place. I can tell you that right now they play as the home of the Silver Knights, which is the collegiate wooden bat baseball league. They also host games from 3 high schools, at least Riviera University. What else? Oh, the seating is about 3,000 today. So that gives you an idea of how much they've done there. And they also added above the press box some luxury seating, which of course enhances how much money you can make, which is the important thing. there is a plaque. They've also hosted some international teams, if you really want to know, like the Yomiuri Giants, the Osaka Buffaloes, and a whole bunch of others that they've done hosted over the years.
Sweet.
So that's part of the historical perspective of the whole place.
Right. So that's the legacy there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. That's what this project's all about. It's about how do we build upon a legacy of the structures, and how do we pay homage to those builders back in the 1930s and so forth. We're coming on the 100th anniversary soon. And, you know, that's what I'm thinking about as well. How do we pay homage to that most important program?
The major plaque that they have is actually about racism, not about specific players. I used to have a picture of it. I don't know what happened to it.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Questions keep coming. Ryan McClanahan, you are up. You can hit that unmute button, my dude. How you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Terrific, man. You're up. Go get them.
All right. So I thank you so much for this. This is really great, Anthony. I noticed that these parks are they're historic landmarks. So what's the criteria for a ballpark to be considered a historic landmark?
That is a super great question, and I'm just looking for the applications. So each one, and I'm kind of doing this because that's how thick the file has to be. So the paperwork is like, it's like maybe 60, 72 pages or something like that. So someone has to kind of like be the project lead, if you will. And usually that's someone that has kind of an architectural background. So they could be working with, let's say, let me pull out a name here. They could be working with Friends of La Palma Park in Anaheim, California, which was built in 1939. So these folks could organize and talk to a historical architectural company and so forth, and start working on the historical registry, and then apply that to the Department of the Interior. So there's tons of forms that you fill out, and it has lots of information. If you're super interested, I can send you a copy of one and just to see what it looks like. So what I'm hoping is that, with the researcher help, is that we could help determine which one of these ballparks are also on National Registry. I don't know. I know a handful, but I don't know if all 44 are historical landmarks. And actually, I know that for a fact that they're not. But it'd be good to see how many of them are. But like I said, if you're interested in what that looks like, I would be more than happy to send you a copy. But it's thick. Okay. They asked lots of questions, some super good information about whoever filled these things out, really knowledgeable, had a lot of really specific information that I was able to kind of glean on in writing these reports as well. They took lots of pictures. There were diagrams, historical diagrams, current diagrams, and so forth. It really made the case as to why this, property should be declared a historical property. So I was just really, really indebted to, those diligent people that filled out these forms.
I have a follow-up to this too. Do they take into consideration the ball player, a certain ball player that may have played there as well?
There had been certain instances. For example, they at the Eau Claire Park, they really did pay homage to Henry Aaron, and you see that in the paperwork as well. So I think that's a really good indication, and having the monument there certainly helped their argument.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Ryan.
Anthony, you think you're off the hook?
I guess not, huh?
No, you're not off the hook. Karen's back up. Karen, how you doing? Go get him.
Fine.
Karen.
I have
Howdy.
one question. I saw that you had a marking for Iowa, and they have
Yes.
the Woodman. It used to be the John O'Donnell Stadium.
Let's see. I've got Alliant Energy Field in Clinton, Iowa, built in 1937, comprised of concrete and steel.
Well, this is in Davenport.
Okay, Davenport. Let me move down the list because I've got my list here. Davenport, or are you
It was
Davenport?
the John O'Donnell Stadium.
Okay, hold on a second. Looking down my list. Huh. I don't see another Iowa.
And
Karen.
it's the modern Woodman Park.
Okay.
And it's minor league baseball with the Quad City River Bandits.
Gotcha. Well, let me make a note of that, and I'll certainly add that to my list. Davenport, and I am familiar with the Quad City River Bandits. Davenport, Iowa. Okay, I'll research it and get some more information out. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Last one for tonight is Dixie Tarango. Dix?
I got one addition here for Ryan. Ryan, anytime you get involved with National Historic anything, you can bet that it is complicated documentation, and that is a vast understatement.
For sure. For sure. I mean, it seems like you'd have to have a lot of patience based on everything that I've read and how precise these things were.
And a lot of people get involved, committee here, committee there, committee everywhere, who are giving you the history of something, how it was built, and it goes on forever before you get your 70 or 80 pages worth of stuff that you hand to someone else to look at. So it is complicated.
Well, this has been quite a informative presentation with some great Q&A, Anthony. I really appreciate you doing this.
Hey, Bruce, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. It's just great to meet you all. Oh, another question?
Nope. But
Okay.
But we are back Wednesday night at 7:00 Eastern when the East Coast Cooperative brings you John Nagowski and his latest book, Last Time Out, Big League Farewells of Baseball's Greats. The sign-up link is available in the SABR events calendar at saber.org/events and is included in the meeting booklet that is circulated each Monday. And finally, if you're a baseball fan watching on YouTube and you like what you see, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to be alerted to each of our weekly uploads. And if you are not yet a member, you need to join the Society for American Baseball Research, the premier baseball community. Offering an amazing baseball buffet of options to explore your fandom, SABR boasts more than 35 different research communities, over 80 regional chapters, and innumerable opportunities to connect with baseball minds across the world. For more information, go to saber.org/join today. Anthony Salazar, you are awesome. Thank you very, very much.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it, everybody.
Let's get everybody out of here. We'll see you Wednesday night. Have a good night, everybody.